All right, guys, we are back for another episode of the On Call Empath with my very favorite empath coach in doing today.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, you moved to Austin recently and looks like you got your house set up. Are you still doing your podcast out of your closet?
Well, things have changed a little bit because my boyfriend and I moved from a one bedroom apartment where we lived and worked during the pandemic. That's why I was always like working out
Uh-huh.
of my closet or my bedroom. And now I was able to manifest this beautiful place where we each have our own office. I have two walk-in closets. So,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so it's more space, and I'm so grateful for that.
Awesome. Well, the reason why I wanted you back, I had a very good response from my audience because a lot of empaths do listen, and you are doing amazing job with the Soul Coach. I actually is listening to a lot of the stuff that you're saying, especially for the empaths, like career wise, entrepreneurship, all of that. That's something that I have to really hone in and say, okay, this is what I want to do. But you've done it. You started off, you've told us even online that you had to take out money to do what you did. And now you're living your dream. And now it has manifested. And I wanted everyone to know that it is
Yeah.
possible.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, that's so awesome that everyone had such a good response to the first episode. I love that. And it is possible. It's so possible to create really whatever it is that you desire because that desire is there for a reason. And I really believe that
Mhm.
empaths are here to change the world, right? So if we feel called
Right.
to share our message and channel our truth, like what you're doing with podcasting, there's a place for it and you can monetize it so that all your energy can go there, right? Instead of being divided in, oh, I've got my day job and then I do this on the side, right? I really try to help my clients and myself. It's like, how can you create what you want, have the impact that you want, and then still have the time and the energy for other things
Right.
outside of it? So, as you know, it's been a journey to create it.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And you just kept consistent. And I've been watching you from before the pandemic. I think you were one of my first couple guests, and I just kept going. And I was watching a lot of your stuff. So yeah, it definitely inspired me. So moving forward with this episode, for all the empaths and highly sensitive people, you're going to get today a perspective from a female empath and a male empath. Because I know for the male portion, I can speak that it's probably not, I guess, I don't want to say it's taboo, but a lot of the things that men want to say, especially being an empath, it might be a little bit to other people like not masculine, or maybe, I don't know, that it's not accepted
Mhm.
yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and it's interesting. Like my partner's an empath and my younger brother is an empath. And the more that I meet men who are empaths, I mean, you guys are underserved even more than women around it, just because
Hmm.
men who are emotional, right? There's a whole stigma to that. And man, I'm
Yeah.
I'm grateful that we're talking about this so it can be changed and broken because I don't know if I can swear on
Yeah.
this. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say because
Swear
this is
all you want.
bullshit. I have my potty mouth. But anyway,
That's all right.
okay, all right, cool. But I just think it's like
S-
I love even having these conscious conversations where you know we can talk about you can still be successful in your life, but there's a way to do it. And it gets to look differently. And
Mhm.
when you're emotionally intelligent, which is what empaths are, which has been really undervalued. When you're emotionally intelligent, like you have gifts that people who are not emotionally intelligent don't have. So it's like, how do we harness and tap into our own magic, our own giftedness, and tap into that creative zone and do it in a way that feels
Mhm.
good? And then you can go out into the world and you can have a very
Mhm.
successful business, right? Like, I'm very
Right.
transparent about being an entrepreneur in this space. And one of the things that I share with my clients who are transitioning from like 9 to 5 jobs into this space of online and spirituality and coaching and healing and everything like that is I'm like, you can make more money by doing way less. You just have to believe that it's
Wow.
possible, and then you have to stand for it. That's the thing. It's like the boundaries and everything like that. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going off track or
Yeah.
anything, but I'm very passionate about it,
No.
obviously.
Yeah. No, that's why I asked you, because it's like I know like a lot of people that listen. I do have a percentage that are
Mhm.
males, and they don't even know what an empath was until they started listening to my podcast. Because there are a lot of people out there that have no clue what an empath is, and they are
Mhm.
one. So they could be listening right now. In fact, I was going through your Instagram, and there was a post that you made that it really resonated with me. It was like it said the empaths that don't know that their power are not only destructive to themselves, but they also are for people around
Mhm.
them. So that really spoke to me, because that's how I was too before I knew all this stuff.
Really? You know, it's really interesting when I did that, when I channeled that message, I was like, that's a weird message to put out there. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm gonna post it. And so I love that that's
It
what
hit me.
landed for you because so what was your story around that? Like, why did you, in what way did you feel destructive?
So, like, a lot of the stuff that I would do is I would people please, and my boundaries were really poor.
Mhm.
So then I wouldn't act up in front of people like at jobs and stuff, but I would beat myself up when I get off my get a good home, and I'm like, why did I let that person talk to me that way?
Mhm.
And that went on for years. And then once I started looking into empaths, and I can see a pattern with boundary setting and people pleasing, I was hurting myself and everyone around me, because I would get pissed off,
Yeah.
and then I would go off on the first person that cut me off in the highway, and I would take all my rage on that person because of all the things that I was going through on a daily basis, and I didn't know what it was.
Isn't that interesting? But
So
then bringing the awareness around it and then being able to reflect back and go, holy shit, like, that makes complete sense. Like, of course I was that way, right? Like, I
absolutely,
resonate by, like, I used to be such a bitch. Like, I would just leave this trail of destruction in all my relationships because I never felt like I
yeah,
could, speak up. And now I look back and I'm like, I have so much
yeah,
compassion for myself. And then
yeah,
we get to choose, okay, like, we can't go back and fix the past, but how can we choose to show up differently so that
yeah,
your internal experience feels really
hmm,
fantastic, and the ripple
yeah,
effect of that is you show up differently in conversations, you hold the standard
hmm,
higher, you're not available for certain things, and then what happens is you really start
hmm,
to treat the world around you and people around you start to treat you differently, right? So it becomes like this
hmm,
different way of being. And when people are not aware that they're empathic, oh my gosh, like, I see it all the time. And I'm like, you just got to own it.
yeah,
Like, you really just have to own it
yeah,
because when you own it, it's going to put you in a place of power that you've
yeah,
never realized before. It just
yeah.
is, yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
I mean, it's like the unknown. I didn't want to go into that dark space. I'm like, I'm just going to stay the way I am. I mean, even in our last episode, you were talking about when you were cutting hair and how your mindset then and how you are now is completely different. That little space in between. I mean, you're you're looking at the world a whole different lens.
whole different lens because here's the thing, when you're empathic, right, you feel everything. So you feel everything, right? I just did a post on clothing. Like, you can feel clothing, your environment, right? Like, my boyfriend and I, because he's empathic, we literally feel each other's feelings all day. And that is
Right.
exhausting, right? When you're thinking about someone, you're feeling them, right? When you're anytime your thoughts are engaged in a situation, your energy, your feeling is going there, right? When people engage in the news or whatever. So when you know that and you understand the cost of not
Yeah.
keeping that on lock, right? Empaths really want to have a lot of control. I deal with a lot of empaths who
Right.
struggle with their control issues because they've felt out of control. And I'm like, because
Right.
everything feels chaotic all the time. And one of the things that I say to them is, all right, I'm not asking you to give up control. I'm asking you to shift it.
Hmm.
I'm asking you to harness,
Mhm.
right? I talk about harnessing a lot. So it's like shift your control, shift your fire, shift your
Right.
energy in a way that's going to be productive for you so that you don't have
Right.
to be in misery, right? It's just not
Sure.
necessary anymore now that so many are becoming more aware of it.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays, a lot of people are texting me and emailing me saying, I didn't know I was an empath. Like, I attract narcissists and I have boundary issues and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's, if that resonates with you. I mean, it could be a good thing, it could be a curse, or it could be a gift. It's all up to you how you want to look at it. And I'm looking in as it as a gift, as a
Hmm.
superpower. And I'm going to use that to my advantage now because I know why I do this, some of the things that I do, and I've talked to a lot of empaths myself, and um, some of them when they recognize and they're living authentically, everything changes, just like what you're doing right now with your soul camp.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so true. Yeah, the soul camp I'm running right now, because each one is like taking on a different theme. And I'm actually going to be doing a soul camp for empaths who've been in narcissistic relationships because it's such a hot topic. Um, and
Right.
one of the things that I've learned is that empaths can very quickly disempower themselves by playing the victim and being like, oh, narcissists, takers, they always come for me. And like, I'm just such a giver. It's just who I am. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm just so empathic, right? All these things. And it's like, well, hold on, hold on. You're like selling yourself short, like there's nothing wrong with a
Right.
narcissist. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not bad
Right.
people. I was with one for 5 years. They just interact with the world so differently than an empath. And an empath usually
Sure.
feels like more victimized in the situation. And so it's
Hmm.
interesting when I connect with people around like whatever their struggle is, because every empath has a different struggle, right? Whether it's like toxic and narcissistic relationships, or whether it's like being seen and
Hmm.
showing up and being visible, right? In holding space for other people. It's like, how do I take care of
Sure.
myself when I'm have to hold space for other people, kind of like what you're doing with podcasting and creating this
Yeah.
platform, right? So
Yeah.
I just think it's really important to like be fierce about knowing your
Right.
process, knowing your no's,
Hmm.
like knowing your limits, right? Like I'm very much like binge Hulu all weekend in bed and don't feel bad about it, right? Like allow yourself the space, take a few weeks to create something, right? But everyone is in this like hard pressure, fast, fast, busy, busy, busy. And I think the world has just
Yeah.
changed so much that people are
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to keep doing that. So I'm gonna go over here
Right.
and do this. Yeah.
Right. People are waking up after the pandemic and there's, sick of the being like a sheep. And
Yes.
some of them, they're embracing the fact that they're empaths. And I love it because when they reach out to me, I'm like, I could just see the difference in your body language, the way you're, coming across, how you're showing up every day. Um, so let's say somebody's just tuning in and they think they're an empath.
Hmm.
What's the next step? What now? What do we do?
Um, so before I answer that, is my boyfriend being ridiculously loud over there? Because I was about to tell him to be quiet. You can't hear him.
No, what is he, a guitar player?
No, he's just yeah, he's just
No.
yapping in the kitchen, not talking about sports, and I'm like, babe, I told you I'd be
I can't. I have the noise reduction.
awesome. Okay. I love it. Okay. So the question was, once someone finds out that they're an empath, now what? Yeah.
Yeah, what the fuck
Yeah.
do we
What the
do?
fuck do we do? So the first thing is get connected. Get connected, right? Like that's why I'm always like, welcome to my community, connect with me, connect with other empaths, because it's very
Right.
normal. It's normal. And when you're waking up to it, there's a lot that happens because you're like, whoa, everything makes sense from like how however old you are. Like I was 34, 35 when I woke up to it. And I there was a lot of reflection of, wow, like having so much grace and compassion for how hard it was,
Sure.
right? So what's going to happen is once you notice, it's like, okay, I need to normalize this. And then how do I show up for myself? Like, what is it that I need to know? And I always call this like life hacks and tools, so that you can have these tools in your belt. So when you're in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so anxious or so down or so overwhelmed, it's like, okay, wait, when this happens, I know that I'm either attaching to someone else's energy. Who have I just been spending time with? What am I thinking about, right? Like, how can I reframe this? And it's all these like internal processes, the tools that are available to empaths, so that they
Mhm.
can dismantle the panic attack, the
Mhm.
anxiety, the feeling within, and then be able to
Right.
show up and be equipped and just be like, okay,
Right.
I know what's going on. Maybe I need to remove myself from the situation, right? So my whole intention for empaths is for them to just feel empowered, where it's like, okay, I
Right.
know what I need to do in a situation like this, because the world's always going to be chaotic and empaths are always going to
Mhm.
feel. They're just always going to feel.
Right.
So it's like, how well are you taking care of yourself, right? What's your self-care game?
Mhm.
What's your mindset? You know, empaths need to have a
Right.
really strong mindset. It's one of the most
Right.
important things, because you can easily talk yourself out of something, or you can talk yourself back into something and keep yourself really low, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say the very first thing around like when you find out about yourself. Actually, what just came through was one of my friends back in Seattle, where I used to live. She
Mhm.
sent me an email and she's like, holy shit, Roddy. She's like, my husband, she's like, I just realized after listening to your podcast, she's like, my husband is an empath. And she's like, it's blowing my mind. She's like, so I had him listen to a couple of your
Wow.
podcasts. She's like, and
Right.
so much has changed. She's like, within a few podcast episodes, she's like, he like the way we
Mhm.
communicate, he doesn't feel so bad about himself. He's learning how to put up boundaries around my crazy madness, like, and we were just chatting about this and I was like, that is amazing. She's like, this is saving our marriage and his life, because he's a male who's finding out that he's an empath
Mhm.
and that he has nothing to be ashamed of. Like, there's nothing for him to feel bad about at all. And just hearing stuff like that just makes me go, fuck yeah. Like, that's awesome. I mean, that's life changing, right? Like, I know what it's
Right.
like to be with an empath who didn't know he was an empath, and it's just a game changer for sure.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Once you just, discover that, it's just everything
Hmm.
changes. So, one thing I wanted to ask you, because I know that a lot of the listeners that are empaths, the number one thing they struggle with is being authentic.
Mm.
And so I wanted to ask you, because you deal with this on a daily basis. So why is that such an issue?
Yeah, I love talking about authenticity, because it's becoming like this trendy watered down term and I'm like, no, 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 like, it's being authentic means that you speak and move and feel in the way that's liberating to yourself and you don't apologize for it. But the reason that empaths struggle is because they have shut themselves down. A lot of empaths struggle with vulnerability, being very vulnerable because of the
Hmm.
trust, right? Because people
Yep.
don't always like, they'll feel something, but then they'll say something to you and the empath feels it, but then the words don't align, right? So
Yeah.
they're like, hold on, am I crazy or what's going on here, right? And when you don't know, it's like, I can't trust them. So, like, I'm not going to be fully transparent or vulnerable. And also being authentic is like, when you feel and you're trying to say something to someone that may be challenging or uncomfortable, which the universe has literally given me so many opportunities lately to do this, where I'm like, oh
Uh-huh.
great, another conversation where I have to be fully detached so that I can speak my truth, which means like say exactly how I feel. Like, I didn't like that. That made me uncomfortable, right? So I'm still in the process
Hmm.
of it as well. But what I've learned is the reason empaths can't say that, can't do that easily, is because they are feeling what the other person is feeling. So if they're saying something and the other
Hmm.
person does is like defensive or reactive or resentful or pissed off or whatever, the empath is literally feeling that while they're trying to speak their truth. So it's just this like very challenging way to show up and really be authentic. Like, for example, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs online, and I do so much coaching with them around just being visible. And they're like, but
Hmm.
what if this? And like, oh, I get on and I go live and someone, they
Hmm.
don't know what, like no one gets on there. And then, right. Like it's just this whole clusterfuck. And I fully understand it because I've been in
Yeah.
it. But there's a level of healthy detachment that empaths get to practice where they don't have to be responsible for other people's feelings or opinions or thoughts. That's their responsibility. What the
Hmm.
empath gets to be responsible for is how am I feeling? How am I showing up? What's my approach? Right? Like, how am I taking ownership
Hmm.
in the situation? And if I'm hiding, why am I hiding? What am I afraid of? Am I
Right.
afraid that they're not going to like me? Okay, they don't like me. Well, okay, well,
That's too much to handle. I don't want any. I want everyone to love me.
I know. I know, but here's the thing. Like, when everyone loves you, you can't fully be yourself because you can't please everyone,
Yeah. Right.
right? Like, this is
I
oh,
mean,
go
I
ahead.
remember. No, I just say I remember when I got my first like negative comment. I was like, and I got like hundreds of good ones, but I found that the one that says, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about," and that's the one that I keep thinking when I speak to somebody because I'm like, "Oh, imposter syndrome. Oh, I don't." They may have read that comment, but it's never. I mean, it's only been once, and that's all my brain remembers.
Okay, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because this okay, this is another fear, is what happens if I get
Yeah.
visible and then someone doesn't like what I have to say or agree with what I have to say? Okay, so the way that I handle people like that is I literally go to their account and I block them and I delete them and I delete their comment and then I move on.
Okay.
Seriously. Like that's how
It doesn't bother you at
well,
all,
it used to.
like
Yes, yes,
subconsciously.
yes. So that's what I physically do because I immediately
Hmm.
go, if I'm going to engage with them, right? Like I just had a reel go viral, like it's hit almost 300,000 views. Like it's insane. Like it's
Nice.
insane. I've never had anything go viral like that. And it's my reel, the one that's like, I used to be nice and sweet and polite, but now I'm like, fuck you and fuck this and fuck everything. Okay, so 98% of the responses have been like insane. Like, this is amazing. She's so funny.
Right.
And I was like, people think I'm funny. That's awesome. I was like, my boyfriend's like, they do? What'd you do that's so funny? I'm like, I know. I don't know why they think it's funny. But anyway, so I've had a few people be like, what's wrong with you? Like, you should hold yourself to a higher standard, all this stuff. And when I see those
Wow.
things, I go, they aren't my people. And it'll
Yeah.
sting, like it'll hit my heart. It hits right here.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, this is the moment where I decide who's in control here. Right? Like because I've had to do a lot of practice with this because I have people who are like, "Oh, honey, why do you
Yeah.
swear? Oh, honey, why do you blah blah blah?" And I'm like, and I talk about that because I'm like, it's so funny how everyone wants to have their opinion, and I
Yeah.
stand for this space to be supportive for empaths and sensitives. So I
Hmm.
always go back to this is what this space is for. I'm constantly blocking and deleting people without even blinking an eye.
Okay.
Always. I mean, I get so many dudes in my Instagram hit me up and girls wanting to send me like interesting sex stuff too. And I'm like, this is not what this is for. Like it's really interesting. So like,
Right.
you have to be a warrior about your Instagram where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm only allowing these people on here. Anyone that's not in alignment with my message, if they're bringing any negativity or any vibe I don't stand
Sure.
for, delete, block, whatever. And then energetically give yourself permission to go, okay, that stung. Yeah, that stunk.
Yeah.
That sucked. Because you got to acknowledge it. Like that sucked, right? Like
Hmm.
I had one guy say on one of my reels, he was the very first person to comment, and he was like, "Oh, just another dumb chick, like ruining another song." Well, that one hit like 10,000 views in like
Right.
24 hours, and I was like, "Who am I going to give more power to? This dumb dude that I don't even know who he is, or all the
Right.
other people that felt really empowered by that?"
Right.
Right?
And those are your
Those are my
people.
people.
And
Yeah. And your people love
yeah, and
you.
and I
And the people that don't
Yeah, and
understand you, this is where you get to say, "Cool, man. Bye."
yeah.
It's a practice.
I mean, that makes so much sense. Yeah, it totally makes so much sense because even what you just explained, if you can just take a little bit of that and put it into like entrepreneurship or working on a career, because I think that that concept that you just talked about is holding so many empaths back because they're scared, like what if they fail, what if my boss says this, or let's say one of my clients thinks that I'm an imposter or something. So what we do is we stop
Yeah.
and then we just say we fail and we give up. Meanwhile, you could have, I mean, I've gotten backlash after my first couple episodes. I didn't know what I was
Mhm.
doing and I was going to quit.
Mm.
I literally was going to quit. And then I was like, why? Because I feel uncomfortable. Where's that coming from? Where's that hurt coming from? It's from trauma, you know, and I'm not ashamed of talking about that. And that's why I started this podcast. But fast forward 100 episodes later, it's like I got a loyal following and those are my
Mhm.
people. Even if it's not millions, if it's in the, couple hundreds, thousands, like those are my people and I'm going to put all my energy in that. And
I just
so
got chills when you said that. Because here's the thing, when we're in the online space, there's all this like conversation around like having hundreds of thousands of followers and all this. And it's like, but if you visualize the 100 beautiful souls that are tuning in right now, just visualize them and like
absolutely
hold the energy of that's 100 people. And they,
100
yeah. And
souls.
what they get to do is think about how they have an outreach, right? Five people in their life. So you get to be 150 fucking percent yourself. And your tribe will
Right.
find you faster. And they're gonna
Yeah.
thank you more. And you're going to have a deeper transformation in their life because you're like, yeah, that hurt
Yeah.
my feelings, but you're not worth it to me. You're just not worth it. Like I'm just right. Like I literally have to talk to myself that way. Like, okay, Roddy, so that client wanted a full refund,
Uh-huh.
right? Like I've had failed launches. I've had clients ask for all their money back. Like I right? And
Wow.
I'm a successful soul coach, but it's been really challenging. Like the person I've had to become in order to hold the space and rise above it, right? Like that's where I think you're
Yeah.
kind of in this pocket of like, how do I rise? And in
Yeah.
the rising,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like pendulum swinging where it's like,
Right.
okay, I'm gonna hide. No, I'm gonna go out there. No, I'm gonna do this and right. And you're gonna land, but it's
Right.
always a journey. And I one of the things
Right.
around authenticity is from the very beginning, I told myself I was like, I think the only way I'm going to survive this online business shit is even though I chose it and I was excited about it, I was like is if I share all my authenticity and every win. So when I had a
Right.
hundred downloads, I was like, oh my gosh, I have 100 downloads, right? Oh my gosh, I thought I was gonna have a $25,000
Yeah.
launch. Flopped. Two people showed up, two people signed up, right? Like, and I talk about that because there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's nothing bad about that. It's all perspective. Like for me, that
Yeah.
launch actually saved my business. That failed launch actually saved my soul. And my soul was like, why the fuck are you doing slides and doing all this shit that everyone else is? You don't do that. You don't prep for programs. You don't do that. Right. And I was able to trust myself. So any
Yeah.
failure that you may experience, that is a deeper
Sure.
opportunity for you to go, okay, what do I get to learn in this? Where do I get to grow? What do I get to let go of? And how next time can I choose differently? Because it's all about trusting yourself with
Yeah.
being a business owner online.
Yeah, it's baby steps. It doesn't happen overnight. And like I've been watching you and it's like you're growing and growing and growing and I'm like and I'm being inspired, feeling like I want to do, that in myself, but I have to start somewhere. And so I'm using this podcast as a like a microphone and putting my true self on
Mm-hmm.
here. And so I took the next step to put my face on on the screen because if you notice like everything was
Yeah.
audio And so actually this is kind of like this should make you feel good. You're like the first person that I've actually had on uh, camera.
Oh,
So
hey.
out of almost 100 episodes right now. So for me to do that, it's like a big deal for me. It's because I was like, no, what if I don't want people to know who I am? But you can't hide from yourself. You're gonna have to, because people are asking, who's the guy behind the on-call empath? Well, here I am,
Yes,
motherfuckers.
and I love it, and even the way you showed up, I was like, "Oh, he's so legit." I was like, "Look at you, you got your podcast, you're so legit." And it's so funny that you had insecurity around that, and I also completely understand. I completely understand
Yeah,
because you're like stepping out and you're like,
yeah,
"Okay, hi, don't don't throw eggs at me, like I'm just here to make
yeah,
you
yeah,
happier, or whatever." Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I come in peace. So,
Yeah.
Roddy, it's been a pleasure. Before we take off, I just want you to kind of let the audience know what you're up to. I know the Soul Camp is doing well. If you can just tell us where we can find you and what your future plans are.
What I'm doing? Well, thankfully, I don't plan too far ahead. And so, which most business people are like, "You what?" Yeah, I'm like, "No, I just like plan like week by week and build programs."
You
Like,
go day
I
by
actually
day.
sell my programs and then I build them. So, what I do actually right now is I do different types of soul camps, right? Like right now, I'm doing one all around
Right.
unleashing your authenticity, and then I have another one coming up
Sure.
around empath entrepreneurs. And so
Right.
if they connect with me on Instagram, the Roddy method, you guys will see it. I have it in my highlights. I'm going to be talking
Right.
about it. And then I also do one-on-one like soul coaching, and I hold the space in a 3 month
Hmm.
energy container. And that works really powerful. That's for people who are like,
Sure.
I'm ready to have a fuck yes life. And then we need to have a
Right.
conversation, because that's when they invest and when they show up for themselves, that's when doors open that they never thought was
Hmm.
possible. So I also get to do that work too.
That's awesome. You always like put me in a good mood when I see your lives and your dancing and stuff like that. I mean, it's good because it makes me feel like, okay, like, you know, whatever I'm going through, like I can just step back and ask myself, if you can do it, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about with entrepreneurship, I mean, to be honest, after listening to you, I've decided, and I'm going to say this publicly, that I'm starting coaching with like everyone as of probably the end of July. And I have you to thank. I have a lot of other empaths that's been on my podcast who's kind of showing me the ropes, that they're coaches as well. They're trauma coaches.
Mm.
So I'm officially saying it, and I do want to give you a lot of credit. You may not know, but I do watch your stuff, and hopefully one day I inspire to be like you and a lot of the other coaches that help me. And I'm I mean, all I see is a vision, and right now that vision is going to one place, and I all I want to do is help
Oh my
people.
gosh.
That's it.
That is amazing. That is yeah,
Goosebumps.
that's huge. And honestly, I feel like that's exactly where you need to be, right?
Yeah,
Exactly where you need to be. If you ever need support around that, let me know.
yeah, I will. I mean, I'm done with the corporate working. I can't clock in anywhere because I will literally have a breakdown. I have to be in charge. I have to be my own boss. I have to call the
Yes.
shots. And I'm at an age where I know that I'm here on this planet to help people, nothing else. That's my purpose here in
Yeah.
life.
And for you to be really effective, I know the episode's done, but for you to be really effective,
Oh, you're
you
fine.
have to put yourself first in the business, like how you run your
Yeah.
schedule, the boundaries you put up, everything like that, what rituals you have in place, how you do programs, how you coach people. Because
Hmm.
the reason that you feel so good when you connect with me, right, is because I'm always doing energy stuff. And so I do
Yeah.
that to connect with my clients and hold the space for them, right? So I'm
Yeah.
really, 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 really excited to watch you thrive. You're gonna help people change their
Yeah.
lives.
I appreciate it. It really means a lot. And so, with that said, guys, this does it for this episode. I hope you got something out of it. Check out Roddy. She's really good at what she does. Check out her Souls Camp. And moving forward, Make sure that if you have any questions, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to answer them. And let me know how I'm doing with the reviews on Apple. With that said, we are out.
You're listening to the On Call Empath.